I'd like to call the regular meeting of the zoning administrator for the city of San Clemente to order. My name is Cecilia Gallardo Daly. I am the zoning administrator. The first item on the agenda is to receive and file the minutes of the zoning administrator meeting of September 9th, 2021. So received and filed. The next item on the agenda is oral and written communication. This is the time on the agenda for anyone who wishes to address the zoning administrator on an item that is not on the agenda. The zoning administrator is not permitted to discuss or take action on these items, but we do allow speakers to submit comments. But it doesn't look like we have anyone requesting to make a comment under oral and written communication. So we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is our public hearing. The public hearing process includes a staff presentation, a presentation by the applicant not to exceed 10 minutes, and public testimony not to exceed 3 minutes per speaker. Following closure of the public hearing, the zoning administrator will respond to questions raised during the hearing, discuss the issues, and act upon the matter by motion. So our public hearing item is 213 Avenida Barcelona. It's a minor exception permit. So we'll have our staff planner, Kitty Crockett, give us a report on this item.
Thank you. Yes. So as you'll notice, this is a continuation from the September 9th meeting. The draft minutes for that are also attached in your packet, in addition to having just been received and filed. I know that you were not the zoning administrator that day, so I will just briefly go over the project and what was discussed at the last hearing. So this is a single family residence. It's about 7,200 square feet, and it has a non-conforming rear yard setback. So the rear yard is relatively small, and the applicant has requested to put a overheight wall within the front yard setback. And the purpose of that was to enclose the pool that they are putting in front of the house. The pool itself is not located within the setback, so we don't need a minor exception permit for that, but just the wall itself, so that they can have that minimum 5-foot height pool barrier that the building code requires. At the last meeting, the zoning administrator recommended some changes, and that's why the item was continued. The zoning administrator recommended that the wall be moved back at least 10 feet from the sidewalk, that potentially they utilize an open construction fence instead of the cement masonry unit wall, and to provide a more detailed landscape plan. So the applicant had agreed to take a look at some of those options and revise, and we are back now. The applicant has revised the plan, and they did provide a much more detailed landscape plan. Let's see. And the wall is moved back. It is still a solid wall. One change that I made from the last meeting to this meeting is I added a condition of approval that it be finished in stucco. That is mentioned in the applicant's application materials, but not shown on the plan. So I just put that as a condition of approval just to be sure that if this is approved, that it will be finished with stucco so that it matches. So now the wall has been moved back 3 additional feet from what was on the original plans at the last zoning administrator meeting. This results in a 6-foot setback and 8 feet from the sidewalk, which is a little bit less than the zoning administrator had kind of discussed prior. But this was what the applicant felt would still satisfy the property owner's needs for the lot. So staff is still recommending approval, and that concludes my report. I can take any questions that you have.
Thank you for that report, Katie. I do have a couple of follow-up questions. The plans seem to show something that looks like a fire ring between the proposed wall and the pool. Are fire rings allowed within the front yard setback?
They are not, and we can't grant a minor exception permit for that either, to my knowledge. And they did not request an exception for that. But if we want to clarify, we could certainly add a condition of approval that states that the fire pit shown on the plans is not included in this minor exception permit.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. And then what is the required front yard landscaping for this zone?
Yes, the required front yard landscaping is 50% of the front yard setback area needs to be landscaped. I don't think that that information was provided on the plans. I'm not sure if the applicant has that information available at this point.
I do. So within the 20-foot front yard setback, I've got 379 square feet of hardscape and 483 square feet of planter area. So I think we've achieved that. I wasn't aware of that in the beginning, but I think we got that handled.
You said, Ryan, you said 483 square feet of landscape?
Yes.
And does the hardscape include the driveway?
Hardscape does not include the driveway. Is the driveway part of that typically?
Okay. And is this 483 square feet, is that all of the landscape in the front yard setback area or just the portion that you're modifying?
No, that is all of the planter area within 20 feet of the front property line.
Okay.
I have the plan up on my other computer right now if you want me to quickly calculate how many square feet the driveway is.
So sorry, we're kind of having just a discussion here, Cecilia.
Fine.
So the 483 would be just below the required 50%, because you're at, I think it's about a 50-foot wide lot. Is that correct?
58 foot 6 inches.
Okay. So you're over 1,000 square feet for your front yard setback. So you would need over 500 square feet of landscape. So that's going to be something that needs to be tweaked.
Okay, no problem.
Okay, Katie, thank you for that clarification. Ryan Dietz is representing the applicant on this project. Ryan, would you like to make any comments or talk about the project or the plans at this time?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was also unaware of the 20-foot setback for the fire pit. So we have no problem removing that. And then I have no problem at all reducing the amount of hardscape to hit that 50% mark. And then any other changes with the planting plan that you guys would like to do to kind of soften it, we have no problem with that at all.
Okay, thank you. And Ryan, I do have a couple of follow-up questions. At the last zoning administrator hearing, the zoning administrator made some recommendations. So can you explain the modifications and I guess your attempts to address the zoning administrator's comments from the last meeting?
Yeah, absolutely. So I took what he had said, which wasn't nothing really definitive that he said that it needs to be this far back or anything like that. I got with the client, and the client was, or the first one was to change the wall to a fence. The client said absolutely not. He'd rather not even do the project than have it a fence there. So I maintained the wall. I got with him and he felt comfortable with moving it back 3 feet, which would allow an 8-foot planter in front or from the sidewalk to the proposed new wall would leave an 8-foot planter. And the client felt good about that. So that's what I went ahead and did. And then I also provided the planting plan as per the recommendations of some vines on the wall to soften, some larger standard trees behind the wall, and then some low plant material in front of that to allow a line of sight when backing out of the driveway.
Okay, great. And I have a question about the planting plan. It looks like from the street, the wall screening will only be screened with bougainvillea, not trees. Is that correct?
Yes, I can put some trees in front of there if you would like. Maybe I misunderstood, but I thought that the on the last meeting that they mentioned that the trees behind it. But I have bougainvillea screening that, and then I have some, I believe, like agaves that are kind of medium height in front of that to cover probably half of the bottom half of the wall, and then in front of that lower plant material for the line of sight. But if you would like some trees in front, I can absolutely make that change.
If I can clarify, Cecilia, that the zoning administrator had mentioned the trees behind if the applicant were to do an open fence, because that potentially with the lower screening in front could provide the type of privacy that the homeowner is hoping to have without having the solid wall, which would more closely meet the intent of the fences, walls, and hedges section, which is to maintain an open street scene.
So I guess I did misunderstand that. But I'm pretty sure I had heard something about every 15 feet, if I remember correctly. So at least a 15-gallon tree as a street tree. So if you'd like me to move some of those, the Icyboo podocarpus to the front of the wall, we could absolutely do that.
You do need, for this size lot, at least 2 15-gallon trees within your front yard setback area. So where they are now actually meets that requirement.
Okay. Wonderful. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ryan. I don't have any additional questions for you. At this time, I am going to open the public hearing. I have not received any requests to speak on this item. Katie, have you received any?
I don't have any public comment.
Okay, then I will close the public hearing at this time. And let's see here. So after reviewing the staff report and the plans and reviewing the minutes, also reviewing the video from last time and going out to the property, I was hoping that the wall would be in a different location than it's proposed. I know that you have added 3 additional feet. It was proposed 3 feet behind the property line. Now it's proposed at 6 feet behind the property line. With respect to the minor exception permit, the purpose and intent of the minor exception permit process is to, and I'm going to read from the code, is to provide for streamlined review of requests for minor modifications of selected site development regulations and applicable off-street requirements in those circumstances where such exceptions constitute reasonable use of property, will be compatible with adjoining uses, and will be consistent with the goals and objectives of the general plan and intent of this title. In addition, for minor exception permits, the code also has for fences, hedges, and walls, separate and specific findings for the minor exception permit. Now, with respect to consistency with the goals and objectives of the general plan, In the residential land use element, there is a policy LU-1.03. It's called maintenance of residential character. We maintain, I'm going to read from the general plan. We maintain elements of residential streets that unify and enhance the character of neighborhoods, including parkways, street trees, and compatible setbacks. I'm concerned that the 5-foot solid wall at its proposed location doesn't result in a setback that is compatible with the character of Barcelona, at least this stretch of Barcelona. This part of Barcelona, or this block, has a very open street scene. There are other walls and split rail fencing and pillars in front yards, but they tend to be very, very low in scale. I'm really struggling to make the findings for the minor exception permit with the fence at the proposed location. As it stands now, I can't make the findings for B, D, and E. B is that the neighboring properties will not be adversely affected as a result of the minor exception permit. I think that as proposed, neighboring properties will be adversely affected by the location of the wall, the height of the wall at this location. D is the height of the fence, wall, or hedge will not be unsightly or incompatible with the character of or uses in the neighborhood. I think that the height of the wall at the proposed location will be incompatible with the character of the neighborhood. And finding E, the height of the fence, wall, or hedge will not have negative visual impacts upon the street scene or obstruct views of traffic to and from driveways. And while the location will not obstruct views of traffic from the driveway, which is good, I think at the proposed location, the 5-foot high wall would have a negative visual impact upon the street scene. You know, I don't want to deny the minor exception permit because I can't make the findings for the project as proposed. I can make the findings for the permit if the wall is in a different location. And I respect that the property owner doesn't want an open fence. I completely understand that. And I don't have a problem with the solid wall. I think the location is problematic in that, you know, this, as I said, this street scene on this block of Barcelona is very open. And as proposed, this would wall off the front of the house with the garage and the solid wall being the dominant feature, which is out of character. The openness of the street really allows you to see the style of homes as you're walking or driving along Barcelona. I can support the wall 10 feet from the property line.
Quick question. I didn't mean to interrupt.
Yes, no, go ahead.
Is that so 10 feet from the property line? And that's from the property line, not from the sidewalk, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so it'd be a 12 enter in front of, or from the sidewalk to the wall.
Right.
That's correct. I mean, right now your pool is in compliance with the setback. It's 20 feet from the property line. This would set that wall 10 feet from the property line. So it's not 17 feet as originally proposed. It's not 14 feet as the modifications had proposed under these revisions that are before me now. But I think 10 feet would still give the property owner reasonable use of the property and reasonable use of the pool. The other thing I wanted to mention is, we were talking about the trees, and it might give your client more space within that area between the wall and the pool if you don't have a planter there for your trees, but maybe you put your trees in front of the wall. Just a thought.
Absolutely. Yeah, that sounds great. Thank you so much for giving me something solid. I think from here I'll approach the client. I'm sure if it's either not have a pool or hit that 10-foot setback, I'm sure we'll move forward with the 10-foot setback from the property line. I'll also remove I think that's a great idea to just use that planter in the inside, just have that on the outside of the wall, put those trees there. And then you'd still want bougainvillea in between those street trees, correct?
I'm gonna, let you and your client figure out what's gonna work best for you in front of that wall. I think that, we're flexible on that. I know that you'll also have to comply with the 50% required landscaping in the front yard. So, that I don't want to impede the creativity in trying to meet that 50% requirement. So I will leave that to you.
Wonderful. All right, perfect. So I'll remove the fire pit. I will achieve the 50% in the front yard, and that includes the driveway. And I'll also move the wall back to the 10-foot from property line. This is great. Thank you so much.
Okay. All right. So with that, I will approve the minor exception permit 21-090 with the modification that the 5-foot wall be set back 10 feet from the property line. And let's see, we know that the fire pit that's shown on these plans are not part of this approval. The applicant will have to comply with the required 50% landscape area within the front yard setback. And the landscape plans, however revised they are, will be reviewed by staff and approved to be in compliance with the code.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for your time. I really, really appreciate it.
Okay, I'm going to determine that the project is categorically exempt from the requirements of CEQA pursuant to CEQA guidelines section 15301, class 1 existing facilities. And I approve resolution ZA 21-022, the minor exception permit 21-090, the Tono Caboni pool wall, subject to the conditions of approval and those that were read into the record. Katie, do you have any questions or follow-up regarding the conditions?
Yes, so I have 4 new conditions that the fire pit is not approved as a part of this permit. The 5-foot wall will be set back 10 feet from the property line. The applicant will comply with the 50% landscape requirement in the front yard setback. And the landscape plans will be may be modified and will be reviewed by staff.
Yes.
Okay, I have that.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Ryan.
Thank you. Really appreciate it, guys. Talk to you soon. Bye now.
Bye. Take care. Okay. The next item on the agenda is 305 East Avenida Magdalena. It is a minor exception permit, but I have a request to have this item tabled and it will be noticed for a future zoning administrator public hearing once the date is determined. So that is tabled. The next item is new business. Seeing none, we'll move to the next item. Old business. There are no old business items on the agenda. So at this time, I will adjourn this meeting of the zoning administrator to the next regular meeting of the zoning administrator to be held on Thursday, October 7, 2021 at 3 p.m. via